Hello, my name is Maura Schumacher, and I'm the Invasive Species Specialist at the Kenai Watershed Forum. Today, I'm going to be giving an update on the state of freshwater invasive species on the Kenai Peninsula within some of the freshwater targets outlined within the Kenai Peninsula Fish Habitat Partnership Conservation Action Plan. The impacts of freshwater invasive species are highly varied and can cause severe and irreversible economic and ecological impacts. In Alaska, it has been determined that if Elodia were to go unmanaged, the yearly cost to the sockeye salmon fishery could be up to $159 million. Through bioenergetic models, it is projected that northern pike could consume up to 1.1 metric tons of juvenile salmon on a yearly basis in Alexander Creek if northern pike are not actively managed. While we have been successful throughout the past several decades in eradicating such species as Elodia and northern pike on the Kenai Peninsula, the threat of reintroduction remains high from these and other species. This requires consistent and concerted efforts from a variety of organizations. What do these efforts look like? Prevention is the key. We focus on prevention through education, which comes in the form of educational signage, public information campaigns, and classroom lessons. A prime example of this happened recently when zebra mussels were found within aquarium moss that was being distributed from multiple major pet store chains. Over 5 states, including Alaska, issued public warnings about the potential for zebra mussels to be present within these mothballs sold in the state. Zebra mussels cost the U.S. economy $1 billion annually. They clog water intakes for municipalities and industries. They foul boat motors, hulls, and water-related equipment. They decrease property value, and their sharp shells litter beaches, affecting recreation and tourism. This is not something the Kenai Peninsula or the state of Alaska can afford from an ecological or economical standpoint. In addition to prevention and education, the other steps being taken are concerted efforts at early detection and rapid response. Every year, multiple agencies and organizations within the Kenai Peninsula Borough survey for pike and Elodia. When new infestations are found, these same agencies act quickly to respond to these infestations. So how are we deciding which species to eradicate and where and when? Through partnerships such as the Kenai Peninsula Fish Habitat Partnership and the Kenai Peninsula Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, we have developed the tools needed to address new infestations through the creation of strategic plans and the Conservation Action Plan, or CAP. As the CAP was being developed in 2011, the Kenai Peninsula Fish Habitat Partnership members immediately recognized the threats posed by freshwater invasive species and the need for coordinated efforts to confront these expanding infestations. The CAP identified 7 targets categorized by water body type. These targets include steep coastal streams, non-glacial mountain rivers, glacial rivers without lakes, glacial rivers with lakes, lowland groundwater wetland-dominated systems, closed basin lakes, clear water connected lakes with associated streams. After the 7 targets were identified and the Kenai Peninsula streams were classified, the group set out to identify the most pressing threats and designated a threat level within each target, high to low. Out of the threats developed, Injurious aquatic invasive species was the only threat that scored a high designation within any target, and it received 3. So what do? We now know we have invasive species present on the Kenai Peninsula, and others are not far away. The Kenai Peninsula Fish Habitat Partnership CAP's invasive species objective is that novel invasive species of flora and fauna that are injurious to native fish or their habitat will not be allowed to establish within the Kenai Peninsula Borough. Existing populations of northern pike, reed canarygrass, and Elodia will be contained to the host watersheds, and efforts to eradicate within sub-watershed boundaries will only be supported where a high probability of success exists. What does this mean for existing and potential invaders of the Kenai Peninsula? For invasive northern pike, The Kenai Peninsula management goal continues to be eradication. Northern pike has been eradicated from 17 water bodies on the Kenai Peninsula, including streams and lakes that are direct tributaries to the Kenai River. Early detection surveys take place on a yearly basis at highly prioritized water bodies. Survey and eradication efforts are guided by the Management Plan for Invasive Northern Pike in Alaska, developed by the South Central Alaska Northern Pike Control Committee. Elodea is the same. The current statewide and Kenai Peninsula goal for Elodea is eradication. Elodea has been successfully eradicated from 6 lakes on the Kenai Peninsula. Ongoing early detection efforts take place at high priority water bodies on a yearly basis. Again, efforts at surveying, monitoring, and eradication are guided by the Integrated Pest Management Plan for eradicating Elodea from the Kenai Peninsula, developed by the Kenai Peninsula Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. As of today, there are active infestations of both Elodea and northern pike within the Miller Creek watershed on the northern Kenai Peninsula. This lowland groundwater wetland-dominated system supports spawning and rearing habitat for both coho and sockeye salmon. This highly connected system could suffer devastating impacts if these infestations were not being managed with the goal of eradication. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, ADF&G, DNR, and KWF are working quickly to rapidly respond to these infestations. And we have reed canarygrass. Because reed canarygrass is so widespread across the Kenai Peninsula, a strategic approach based on a watershed analysis is taken when deciding whether to eradicate, control, or contain a population. The watershed analysis classified watersheds based on isolation, discreteness, and species richness. The result of this watershed analysis was the classification of 127 watersheds into the action types contain, control, eradicate. 749 infestations of reed canarygrass were present on the Kenai Peninsula in 2011. In 2020, the watershed analysis was updated with survey data collected between 2011 and 2020. 14 previously clean watersheds are now known to have infestations of reed canarygrass at varying levels. Updated surveys have determined that the number of infestations have increased to 1,324, almost doubling in number since 2010. So now that we have action types, how do we move forward with addressing reed canarygrass on a watershed scale? We'll look at some examples. There are active populations of reed canarygrass within the Russian River corridor. Because of the high value of the resources present within this system, the immense popularity of this area as a recreational site, and ownership of land by the federal government, eradication remains the goal for this clear water system. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Chugach National Forest treat reed canarygrass on lands adjacent to the stream. In 2019, a 15-acre infestation was discovered along a power line corridor in the area. The KP-FHP worked quickly to begin eradication operations, as the persistence of this infestation would negate any control efforts taking place by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or Chugach National Forest personnel. We worked hard in 2019 and 2020, clipping seed heads, applying herbicide, and mowing the infestation. Canoe Lake falls within the Kenai National Wildlife Refuge and is a popular launching point for the Swan Lake canoe route. It is a short portage away from the Swan Lake Road. Infestations reported in 2020 are a clear sign that reed canarygrass seeds are being spread through recreational gear into wild and remote areas. Highly recreational traffic in this area has the potential to spread reed canarygrass into even more remote and sensitive areas of the Kenai National Wildlife Refuge. The Kenai National Wildlife Refuge is developing a plan to address the eradication potential of these infestations. Beaver and Slikok Creek are both tributaries to the lower Kenai River and have historically supported spawning and rearing habitat for coho and sockeye, as well as king salmon. From 2008 to 2011, reed canarygrass populations in these areas were managed with digging and tarping efforts. These are effective tools for control, but ultimately not an effective strategy for eradication. The highly parceled sections of these creeks has made eradication efforts difficult, as gaining permission from all property owners to complete herbicide applications is a difficult and time-consuming process. The goal remains control, which hopes to prevent these watersheds from becoming further damaged by the presence of reed canary grass. The action type for Bishop Creek is contain. Bishop Creek is a low-lying, wetland-dominated system that is known to support spawning and rearing habitat of sockeye, coho, and pink salmon. During a 2019 survey, it was found that several acres of streamside habitat were completely inundated with reed canary grass. Control efforts have never taken place within the system, and therefore the goal is to contain this population to the Bishop Creek watershed. As you can see, reed canary grass has developed a monoculture along the banks of Bishop Creek and has begun growing within the stream bed. Reed canary grass is also being managed along roadsides and vector points. These places include areas along the Seward Highway, the Cooper Landing Boat Launch, East End Road towards the Fox River Flats, and Otter Creek at the end of the new North Road Extension project. Moving forward, as the number and density of invasive species in Alaska continues to climb, we need to continue to focus on the things we know work: prevention, education, early detection, and rapid response. We will also need to begin strategizing and prioritizing our most highly valued watersheds, as well as analyze watersheds with the highest potential for resilience against injurious aquatic invasive species and other potential threats. Thank you very much for listening. Again, my name is Maura Schumacher. I work for the Kenai Watershed Forum. Thank you very much.